Welcome to Super Aging Podcast. This podcast strives to promote healthy aging and amplify caregiver voices while raising awareness about dementia. Thank you for listening. I am your host, Fatou. Today, I am speaking with Mr. and Mrs. Brian and Anne Marie Reece. Brian W. Reece Sr. spent 4 years serving our nation in the United States Marine Corp in machine maintenance and repair. At the age of 56, Brian was given the diagnosis of younger onset Alzheimer's disease. Brian and his wife, Anne is a special education teacher, merged their two families together almost 30 years ago with 4 grown sons and 14 grandkids. Anne retired 27 years after teaching special education. She uses those skills to help Brian strategize and also learn new things. Together, Anne and Brian are a formidable team, helping Brian to prepare for the challenges that Alzheimer's disease brings. I am excited to share their stories with you today. Welcome to the podcast, Brian and Anne. First, I want to thank you for your service to our nation.
Thank you.
And also wish you both a very happy Memorial Day weekend.
Same to you and to everyone else.
Yeah, thank you. It also occurred to me that June is Brain Health Awareness Month. Do you guys have any activities happening?
We don't have anything planned, but let me tell you, everything that we do is really geared to things that are good for our brains.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So Anne and Brian, this to both of you. Here at Super Aging, we like to ask our guests what super aging means to them. So what does super aging means to both of you?
Well, for me, it means growing wiser, not older. Taking time to laugh at things instead of getting all stressed out about it.
Absolutely right. That is true. Way to go. Yeah.
And to me, super aging means aging with grace, not letting my age direct my life or dictate my life.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, Brian, I know that you feel very strongly about advocating and raising awareness about dementia and Alzheimer's. Why is this important to you?
Well, the more people are aware of this disease, the better chance there is for it to be caught early, giving people a better chance to make lifestyle changes and getting medical interventions. I speak out for those who can't speak out for themselves.
You know, that's very inspiring. I've seen you firsthand work on important legislations, and it just warms my heart every time I see the work that you do around this cause to raise awareness, but also to make a huge impact on legislation by sharing your story and stories of other people. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Can you tell us a little about what you were feeling when you received this diagnosis?
Well, I thought no one should know about my diagnosis. I thought it was all wrong, that they had made a mistake, and they made me stop working. I suppose I was supposed to work until I was 66. I felt like my purpose in life was taken away.
I'm really sorry to hear. That's that's a tough one. And what was it like?
To go in a different direction.
Yeah. And what was it like for you to hear the news? Were you there at when the news was delivered?
Yes, I was. And actually, I really knew the diagnosis probably before anyone else really did, because I was on a research mission because I kept doing things to help Brian remember things. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? I would have a conversation with him. I'd go into the other room, change my clothes, come out. He'd say, where are you going? Really? Are we just playing games, or do you really not know where I'm going? And then he would say, like, well, it'd be really nice if somebody would tell me things around here. So I was writing things on calendars. I would talk to him about what he needed to do after work. And so then I would sneak out to his car and put a little note on the steering wheel, and still things weren't getting done. Or I would figure out that, oh yeah, he took that note off the steering wheel and totally forgot about it until he took his lunch pail off of it when he got home, and then had to drive back to Janesville. So I was already working on trying to figure out what was going on.
Right.
Of course, to him, he had, it was because my expectations were too high. It was because he wasn't getting enough sleep. So I kept trying to address everything that he would throw my way. And then so when I got him to go to the doctor, not because he was having memory problems, it was because he was complaining about his arm. And so I got him into the doctor, and we're talking about the arm. And the next thing he knows, he's going for neuropsych testing.
You just trick him.
He was just like, what is going on
What's
here?
that got to do with my arm?
He goes, what's that got to do? Oh, no. You're going to see this doctor about your arm, but this is to see if there's another way I can help you, because you keep forgetting things. And so I tried to keep it positive,
right?
Even though I suspected something very negative. And then the other thing is, I was just digging deep, like, what else could it be? So when I'd go into appointments with him, I'm sure the doctors were like, oh, here she comes with her list. But then after he got the diagnosis here in Beloit, we went to UW-Madison and asked for a second opinion, because Brian was sure that they were wrong. And so I was like, okay, we need a second opinion. And when we got there, they said, there has not been one stone unturned. The one doctor said, I haven't seen a case like this in a long time. And I thought, it's probably because not everybody has me for their spouse.
Yes.
But we had eliminated anything and everything we thought could be possible. And so when the final thing, they did a PET scan. And I had talked to the technician, said, when will we have the results? And she's like, well, by this date, unless they're questioning, then they will always ask for a second opinion. They'll have somebody else read the results. So when those results weren't back right away, I knew what we were dealing with. And so I made sure, I went to the appointment with him, and yeah, I was there.
Okay. How long ago was he actually diagnosed?
10 years ago.
It is 10 years already.
It's 10, it'll be 10 years, the 21st of June. It'll be 10 years.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
And so
it was June too, when he was diagnosed.
Right. And actually, at that point, I thought by this time things would look different than they do. And I'm so happy that things look different differently than what I had expected.
Yeah, and in a good way too.
Yeah.
How long have you noticed? At what age was Brian when you noticed the changes in him?
His diagnosis was when he was 56. I
Right.
was watching those probably for a couple of years beforehand.
Okay.
I didn't really know what was going on, but then, I just started, red flags kept coming. And eventually I asked one of our sons to watch as well. And then when he saw things, then it was like, Mom, have you called? Have you done something?
Yeah.
But I'm going to say, like, did we figure like 2.5 years before Brian was having difficulties at work? He came home and he would say, they're asking me to remember things from yesterday and I can't remember them. And
if you handed me my route paper where I made notes, I kept like triplicate notes, one for me, one for the company. And I had a fail safe that when they would ask me things, I could go to these items. And when they would tell me that's not what you did, I could produce all three. So if I didn't do that, why is it here?
so basically what I did for him when he was expressing these concerns about work, asking him questions, and of course he made it sound like it was weeks later. He said sometimes it would just be the day after and he couldn't remember.
Right.
So I made him like a spreadsheet and a check off list. So for every stop he did, he would write like in there, so that if they said, did you pick up totes? Did you drop off this? Did you do that? He had little notes for himself so that he could answer them.
Right.
And so that was probably when it all started. And that's when we had conversation with the doctors at UW-Madison. They said that probably was the start, which was a couple years before. So he actually would have been like 53, 54 when just not anything that people would expect for somebody that age.
That is true.
And certainly not me. I mean, it wasn't on my radar until until I started researching that there was this younger onset Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah.
So.
Does any of Brian's family, does any of your family have Alzheimer's before?
None that I know of. I got a brother, but that's alcohol related.
Okay.
Other than that, nobody in my family has shown any signs.
And when Brian was diagnosed, his father's memory was better than Brian's.
Yeah.
So.
And how old was his dad at the time?
He would have been 70 something, 73.
Probably in his late 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of our listeners may be familiar with Alzheimer's disease, but for those who may not be as familiar, Alzheimer's causes the formation of protein in the brain called beta amyloid and tau protein, which interferes with the communication within and between brain cells. The accumulation of protein in the brain causes symptoms of Alzheimer's. Brian, what are some of the tasks that you found difficult, that have become difficult for you?
Well, managing time, calculations I used to be able to do in my head. I either had to have my calculator or pencil and paper. Remembering dates or when things happened, remembering where I put things and where things belong. I still have, the biggest problem I'm having right now is to have something in my hand, I set it down. I know I set it right there in front of me, and I'll do something else and I'll turn back and I need that particular tool or whatever. I don't see it until I get up, walk around the room, and I sit down again. Well, there it is, you dummy. You know, things like that.
Yeah. That must be
sometimes
difficult.
sometimes I think what happens is what the name and what the item looks like don't match for him.
Okay.
That's kind of what I'm seeing. And then the other thing is he can misplace something, and you and I would just go back, trace our steps backwards.
Yeah.
But he can't always remember where he was, what he did, to be able to find that.
Go back and find that out. So tracing things back is difficult. Yeah.
So I'm going to say like a week or so ago, he told me that he was missing a certain wrench. And I had looked and looked. We've had long talks about don't spend 5 hours looking for that wrench if you can just go borrow somebody else's. That's not a good use of your time. And so then I was in the shop doing something, and I was going through some bins, making sure that everything was the same in the bin, and to see if some parts needed to come out. And there was that wrench. And then he was able to, I didn't move it. I went and got him.
Then I remembered exactly.
And then he remembered what happened. He put the wrench in the bin and then got the parts out, but didn't take the wrench back out.
Okay.
And so, but that's, and I agree with, with what he's saying, that those are the things he struggles with. And we kind of talk about what I can do to help him through those challenges. And one of the things we came up with is you can't look for 5 hours for your wrench. The other thing is like his wallet. He has misplaced his wallet. He has misplaced keys. We have tiles on our keys that I can find. And we have one, they make one that's thin as a credit card. And he has that in his wallet. It has saved us multiple times. It will lead us right to it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
So we found some strategies and some things to help us.
That's great. So and I know you have found your experience as a teacher helpful in teaching Brian to use new tools like the iPad. I remember Brian using the iPad at one of our legislative meetings, which was wonderful. Can you tell us a little about what has inspired your support for Brian?
Well, I think that many people see a diagnosis like younger onset Alzheimer's disease as a set reality, like this is it. I honestly saw it as a challenge. Like, okay, you have memory problems. We need to find you some strategies. And but of course, I didn't tell him that. I just thought that in my mind. We've got to figure out what's going to help you. And so I bought us an iPad. It was my iPad. But so what I did in as nice of way as possible without him knowing, but basically I was teaching him how to use that iPad like I would one of my students. And basically first they're watching you, and then you're letting them do some of it, and pretty soon they're doing all of it. And we played a game called Words with Friends. And we would do it together. And you've got these letters. Well, I said, look, we can go to use this sort of cheat on the internet. So you have to get out of one program, get into the other one, remember those letters, put them in it, and then see what words there are and go back. Well, that's a lot of steps.
Yeah.
And at first, Brian could only remember 1 or 2 letters at a time.
Okay.
And so that's where I started teaching him strategies.
Okay.
I started saying, okay, look at those letters. What can you do to those letters to make them easier to memorize? So can you put all the vowels together? Can you make short words? What can you do? And pretty soon he was able to do 6 or 7
Letters.
The other thing that we learned really quickly was Brian needs to say things out loud. If he looks at the letters C-A-B, but doesn't say them out loud, by the time we flip to the other application, he probably doesn't have it. But if he says the letters C-A-B out loud, by the time he flips, he will remember it.
Right.
And so it's just using some strategies, and it's really helped him. He went from 1 to letters. And of course, I did some helping so that he wouldn't get too frustrated.
Right.
But that's where I'm using my background as a special educator to help him.
Right.
Eventually, I'm going to say after we had that iPad, probably the first year, all of a sudden it became Brian's iPad. It wasn't mine anymore. I'd be like, where's the iPad? And there he is with it. And Brian had a flip phone. And I will tell you, my experience with Brian's cell phone prior to that I would go into the cell phone place and hold his phone and say, see this phone? I need another one exactly like it, or really close to it, because learning new things was difficult for him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, part of that was, he just liked how something worked and he didn't want something new.
Right.
So
it's difficult.
Eventually I thought, I think he could handle an iPhone, and I only had a texting phone. I didn't have an iPhone. And so he was the first one to get the iPhone, and I did that on purpose.
Right.
So that I would help him. We would learn together like we did with the iPad. Okay. And of course, our family was really joking. They're like, Dad is going from a flip phone to an iPhone. Watch out, world.
It's a huge upgrade.
Yeah.
It was a huge upgrade. And he, I don't think he was as confident as I was, but I knew he was ready for that. And he really likes the, like when we go to appointments and there's downtime, then he might be anxious. He can play a game.
That's great.
And we found that if he's forgetting how to do something, we were at the Alzheimer's Association's event. Brian was going to be presented the Courage Award. We were getting dressed in our motel room, and he said, I don't remember how to tie my tie. And I went, oh, dear Lord, I don't know how to tie a tie. I grabbed my phone and I found a YouTube video, and I thought, this is going to help one of us.
It is, and my goodness, teaching for learning stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, thank goodness he just watched it and he went, oh yeah, and tied his own tie. Thank goodness.
Yeah, he remembered how to do it. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
talking about tools and games or activities, what's most useful for meeting those challenges? What kind of tools and activities or games are most useful?
For me, it's been word search, looking for hidden words,
Mm-hmm.
words with friends,
Okay.
playing solitaire,
Uh-huh.
cards, which is a game of a cube
Okay.
that you have to turn and move to a certain position to make the steam pipes flow.
Okay.
And that's
I
dimensional.
can
That's
do it.
3-dimensional.
Wow.
Those are things that I worked with all my life as being a mechanic, being
Okay.
able to picture things, how they should work, where they should fit, and more or less like planning the next step. It's stuff that comes from way back that I have
Right.
never forgot.
Right.
I play checkers with my granddaughters.
That's nice.
Problem is they've gotten better than I am. If I'm doing something
Mm-hmm.
that I know I can do it,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm in doubt that I've got a step wrong or I'm just not sure what I'm doing, then I'd look on
Right.
YouTube to confirm what I know is right.
Such a
So
great
I'm not
resource.
messing whatever I'm doing up.
Right. Right. That's wonderful.
That's what I do.
Good, good, good. Thanks for sharing that. YouTube
Yeah.
is really a great resource. I mean, I use YouTube for literally anything I'm looking for. Before I even go to Google, I just go look at the videos first and see
Right.
what I can find. So that's
Right.
great.
And the one thing I want to say about the phone, because I do go to support groups and I'm on a Facebook support groups, and a lot of people say, oh, all of a sudden they forgot how to use their phone. Brian, whether he likes it or not, uses his phone every single day. I have different people calling him.
That's nice.
Our granddaughters call him. He never knew how to text a message, but
I'm still slow at it.
Right. He's still slow at it, but at least if I am somewhere and I send him a message, pretty sure I may get a response back.
She asked me if did I write that or did somebody else write it?
Well, and yeah, the day it was 2
and you said
complete
I did it all
sentences,
by
I was
myself.
like, right. The day it was 2 complete sentences, I was like, okay, who helped you? And he said, no, I did it myself.
Took me all day.
That's incredible.
We also have a joke about, at first he wasn't answering robocalls. I said, go ahead, answer them, have fun. Brian has a great sense of humor. I'm not sure that the robocall people appreciate his sense of humor, but it is really funny to listen to him talk to them on the phone.
I bet. So, Anne, how have support for Brian evolved over the years since his diagnosis?
Well, it just kind of changes slowly. I think one thing that I could say, like his medication. So at first, we used to get his medications and put them in a box together. Okay. And then it was his cell phone that had an alarm set. And it was his responsibility to go and get his meds and take them. But we definitely have had some little challenges along the way that have made us know that, you know, maybe we need to change that. And so now it's evolved to, I do all the med boxes. It's my phone that has the alarm. If I'm going to be gone, our son and daughter-in-law live across the street from us, so one of them will check to make sure he's taken his meds.
Okay. That's great. That's great. So talking about accessibility of support, I know things are getting better, but I would imagine 10 years ago, it would be hard to get support groups for people at Brian's age for the younger onset. what kind of support was out there for you guys?
Well, Ann had looked for a long time for a support group, and there was nothing in our area. We started going to, without warning, a support group for those with younger onset Alzheimer's, 88 miles away.
That far.
Yeah, we traveled about an hour and 20 minutes to get there. But after the first meeting, I knew we would have to keep going because there was a group of people that Brian could talk with.
That were in the same boat as I was.
Yeah. And so
How big was that group? How big was the group?
The group varied anywhere from 9 people at the time, one day, up to 15 people.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I had the experience of seeing people that I'd met it didn't matter whether you're a teacher, an airplane pilot, a race car driver, a banker, a known publicist, somebody that worked in movies as a producer. It doesn't matter your background, what you know, it can happen to anybody.
It sure
and
does.
I've watched people that at that time I could communicate with steadily fall off the edge because their ability to do something to keep going was to sit at their desk or sit on the couch. That's all they did. Because their spouses were working, so they're told, you stay right there, don't go nowhere. Right. I feel that that's what makes people fall off the edge sooner.
That is true. I know Anne mentioned something at the beginning of the meeting, or even prior to the meeting, like not everybody have a spouse like Anne, right?
Right.
And it's such a nice, you guys are such a great team together to walk this journey along with each other. It's really nice.
I know that working in our group, we have like a round table. We go to each person and somebody will mention something or another. And eventually they get to me and I challenge them to do something different, to learn something they never learned. I'm ambidextrous to an extent. So I challenge people that are totally right-handed, put it in their pocket, do everything left-handed. They're using part of your brain you've never used before. You know, you're teaching yourself something.
Yes.
I've had a couple of people, one picked up the flute, young lady or woman, and she never played flute in her life, but she was learning, but her teacher moved away. So she picked up the piano.
Yeah.
Another person picked up a guitar. He's never played. And then other people would ask me questions in our little group. Well, what if I forget? Well, do it again.
Yeah.
Eventually something's going to click for you that you might remember what you did.
Persistent,
what if I
right?
don't remember the song? I said, make your own song. You know, be creative.
Be creative. And you know, Brian, thank you so much for sharing that. There is this term called neuroplasticity, that our brains have the ability to recreate new brain cells. And that is with the use of like things that are challenging and learning new things. That way our brain cells regrow again. So that's exactly what you're doing. And you know, the other thing is that I've known you guys now for many years and have been very inspired by the kind of work both of you are doing, not only for this Alzheimer's cause, but also within the community that you live in. And to see you continue to do that, I mean, it is usually, like they said, the early onset folks tend to decline more quickly than the regular Alzheimer's disease. but I've seen something different in you in a way that like you continue to do all these activities. And I think that's very inspiring. So what do you explain might have a lot to do with that as well. So thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
The one thing I'm going to say is we noticed that 3 men in the group without warning really kind of held steady. And there was something very much the same for all 3. It was Brian and 2 other men, and that's that their wives were home with them, or one man and his wife had a janitorial business, and they worked together, and he stopped doing part of the job, like going out and doing the janitorial work, but he stayed back at the office and worked on the floor scrubbers and the mechanical things. So he was working with his hands, challenging himself, repairing the janitorial equipment. Right. The other man did stained glass, and he kept doing it. So our little observation is, one, having somebody there with you, encouraging you, and helping you through the little bumps that might be there, is helpful. And then keep doing something that's keeping your mind active. If you're working on janitorial equipment, you're working on bicycles, you're working on stained glass, those things are keeping your mind active.
That's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. Thank you.